Hey kids, join the club. Get the all-new CCXCC t-shirt made with 100% mutant power. Be like these cool kids. Get it now on dinobeast.com and chrisandersoncomics.com. Hey, you hosers, grab a hold of Molson Ice there and come on in and check out the Chris Claremont X-Men Comic Club. I'm here, as always, with my partner in crime, John Coates. What crime are we partners in? The crime of lightheartedly poking our neighbors to the north and wearing a Canadian tuxedo. I have a denim button down too that I can never wear because I can never wear any of these because I'm always wearing jeans too. So I've got half of a Canadian tuxedo.
Hey, half's better than none, right?
Yeah, that's right. Half a tux, and then you got your lumberjacking outfit on.
That's right. My best Mountie red.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that we are lovingly getting into the spirit of our Canadian neighbors is that issue 120 of X-Men is the first time we're going to kind of get glimpses of Alpha Flight. So it's a pretty exciting issue. You guys, look, Chaos in Canada. You guys are going to be this in the next episode are going to be building up for some stuff you'll be psyched about. Right, John?
That is correct, sir. We are about to take flight. Alpha Flight.
Heck yeah. So this is a cool cover because you got this foreground like peak of them, kind of in purple and then framing the I love the purple too. It's like almost like there's like, tech or something glowing behind them. It's pretty great.
Yeah, usually don't get purple. It's always usually like a blue instead.
Yeah. I'm taking note. And then you get the X-Folk right there in front.
Yeah, sort of a crashed airplane behind him, and Budansky is on the cover duties here.
Interesting.
Is it Bob Budansky?
I think that's right.
Right?
Yeah. If it's not, it should be.
I think it's either Bob or Bud, but I'm pretty sure it's probably Bob.
Well, as long as it's an alliteration, it's fine with me.
Yeah, right? In classic Marvel style. So yeah, issue 120.
Well, let's crack it open and take a peek here. All right. So we're immediately whisked away to the to sunny Ottawa, Ontario, Canada.
Yeah, that is right. And again, Claremont and Byrne on our, of course, author and penciler, Terry Austin on inks, Orzakowski lettering, and Glynis Ween on colors.
Yes. And again, we get to see Alpha Flight here as being voyeurs and somehow peeking in on whatever the heck the X-Men are doing.
Yeah, with our
so it's calling back to the fight that they had in the previous issue.
Wanted Wolverine, dead or alive.
Yeah.
Oh, and great initial splash page here. I like the way they continually set Alpha Flight up as like a government hero team.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you see like in the background there, you see this little again, you see they have sort of like a Rebel Alliance soldier from Star Wars running the computers, and then this guy that he is talking here is the Prime Minister.
Yeah,
and man, does he look like a sleazeball. He looks like a used car salesman.
Yeah, Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah.
Oh. And right away he is talking to. Here's our guy. He was called Weapon Alpha.
Weapon
when
Alpha.
we saw him before.
I called him Guardian before. Sorry about that. Sorry.
Yeah. You were 2 names ahead.
Yeah.
And he's mentioning that that our Weapon Alpha guy is the person who codenamed Wolverine.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
He talks about he talks about him at the X-Men as so-called superheroes.
Yeah, and unofficial.
Yeah.
I guess they're unofficial because they're not government sanctioned, which we don't really get in. What it would be, X Factor would be the first time that would happen in sort of the States version.
Right. Although he does in a couple of pages, maybe the next page even, say that there's hints that they have government affiliation, but
yeah, and so-called heroes.
Yeah.
And they believe that they're all mutants like Wolverine.
Yeah, really looking down his nose at him.
And they have Canada has a good spy network apparently, because they're looking at the X-Men fighting the Mandroids in Japan.
Yeah,
we saw in the previous issues there.
Totally. Yeah, check this guy out. Look at this prime minister. Make his hair green and paint him white and give him a red smile. Move that hair up a little bit.
Yeah,
he's the Joker.
And so so here they're having a little conversation about who the X-Men are. Basically like what's Wolverine doing with them, if they're dangerous or not. And our prime minister is basically reiterating what our Captain Canadian guy here said way back in issue 109 when he first showed up, is that they want Wolverine back in Canada and back with their government team.
Right. They worked really hard to make Wolverine what he is today. They want their property back, basically.
Yeah. Our prime minister says we spent a lot of money and resources developing and training him, not to mention your group as well, and I won't see it thrown away. And so he's going to go, and our Mr. Hudson here, he's going to go along with it. And he's like, okay, it's time to get Alpha Flight together.
Yep.
And so he sends out the Alpha signal.
So is this the first time that Alpha Flight is mentioned, or did they mention it in 109?
In 109, I think they mentioned the name Alpha Flight.
Okay.
But that's all they do.
And this is the first time that we're going to see them.
Yep, and this is the first time we see them. And so right away, it gives us a nice little rundown of in their human or in their sort of civilian identities.
So this is interesting. This is the first time that we're going to take a look at the lineup of Alpha Flight. And I don't know that much about Alpha Flight myself. I knew that they were a Canadian superhero team. Read about them. I think read a story with them most recently in the last Hulk stuff that was out. The only characters that ever really stuck out to me were Sasquatch and Puck, and then everybody else was just sort of vanilla to me. And so when they're introducing these characters, I don't know if any of these are from the teams that I remember from the 90s, besides Sasquatch. And I know Puck isn't even in this team yet. So it's really cool to see like these characters introduced.
Yeah, I think Alpha Flight membership changes like not quite as frequently as Avengers lineups would change. But when you get into their series that they've had, like they've really tried to just shake up continually, like who's on the team, except for like Sasquatch, because he's like the standout and stuff. But I really like the original Alpha Flight lineup.
Okay, well let's check them out.
Yeah, so we get our Jean-Paul here, codename North Star. We get Dr. Michael Two Young Men, who's super awesome. He's Shaman. we get a corporal in the Corporal Ann Mackenzie, Snowbird.
Yep, she's just a records officer. So
Yeah.
she just keeps the files up in the Northwest Northwest Territories.
Mm-hmm.
So like the Yukon and stuff, I guess. Would that be Northwest, or would that be like would they call like Vancouver? No, that wouldn't be North.
No,
that wouldn't be Northwest.
like the Yukon is its own territory.
Yeah, right. So
And then
Northwest, North in Canada would be up in Yukon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually called the Northwest Territory.
Is it really?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm stupid.
Yeah. Dr. Lankowski here, Walter Lankowski, All-Pro Canadian linebacker, is our Sasquatch. And then Jean-Paul's sister, Jean Marie, is Aurora.
Ah, okay. So there was something that was something that I missed at my first read through. Is that well, no, actually, it doesn't even say it there that they're.
Yeah, it just gives you the names and it splits them apart, which is interesting. Instead of just right away telling you that, oh, this is the twin sister of the first guy.
Yeah, because something's going to happen later in this issue, and I didn't know who that was. I thought maybe that was some like a pair not of the team that this was going on with, and now I guess I see that it must be those two.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting way to like introduce this team by giving just like their regular names and what they do when they're not busy superheroing. You know, we just get to see them in civilian, and then we get their code name, but like that's it. We don't see them in costume or anything yet.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Not in the regular issue of X-Men. In the classic, we get a little glimpse.
There we go. We'll see him then.
Yeah.
So now we get to what our X-Men are up to, and they're still in Japan, getting ready to finally leave and head back home.
Yep.
And here we get Sunfire actually being friendly.
Yeah, can you believe that?
Calling him friend, sayonara, my friend, and thank you for all the help you gave me and Japan.
God, he's the best costume.
Yeah, I was proud to fight by your side.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Big.
Yeah. So they finally get to part as friends, and everyone else is ready to get on the plane and head home, but Nightcrawler notices, but where's Wolverine? And Wolverine is over here saying goodbye to Sunfire's cousin, Mariko.
Yep.
And he taps on the window. She rolls it down. He gives her a flower.
A white chrysanthemum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if that sounds like something like a perfume by Elizabeth Taylor or something.
Yeah, and I wonder if it has like a special meaning, you know, like maybe in Japanese culture.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, and you know, he's like, "Hey, it's something to remember me by," and she says, "It's very beautiful, Wolverine-san, and so are you." And then he actually tells her his real name. My name is Logan.
Yes, he had mentioned that to her before, didn't he?
I think he was going to.
Oh, that's right. That never got out of his out of his mouth. Couple cool things on this page. This plane that's flying through that finally takes off. That those clouds are really an interesting way to ink clouds, and I cannot tell how he did it.
Yeah, they've got this like kind of scratchy crayon-like quality is all I can.
Yeah, it almost looks like
over.
Use like a grease marker or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get introduced to these. I thought this was an interesting choice because, you know, in comics you just kind of usually go with the stereotype when developing and introducing characters that you haven't really seen before, but he's got these two lady pilots.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a cool little addition.
Yeah, and like we get names for him and everything.
Yeah.
So you wonder if he's kind of setting up, well, maybe they can show back up later, interact with the X-Men in some other way, you know?
Yeah, I love how he just drops these characters in. And then, I like the fact that you could have gone with two guys, but he just or a guy and a girl, and he went with two women, and I think that's really, really cool.
There is like an interesting little pattern of, we'll see as we go along, like female pilots that end up interacting with members of the X-Men through the series. And like will be like recurring characters.
Cool.
Which is a interesting, just like little kind of side thing.
Yeah.
Also, the design of like the interior of this plane is wild, with these curving spaces.
Yeah. I don't know. Does that? I don't know if I ever really noticed that. Yeah. Okay. So where you mean where they're like sitting in the actual area back there?
Yeah, and then like it's like these curving doorways back to other rooms or wherever.
Yeah, like you'd expect a grotto or something to be back there, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very 70s.
Yeah, it's like a rock star's airplane or something.
Totally.
So basically, like one of the pilots wakes Cyclops up, and Cyclops, he's all like cozying up here to Colleen Wing, who is coming back to the States with the X-Men. And they figure out there's something weird going on with the weather.
Yeah.
Like there's some weird blizzard going on, and it's like basically forcing the airplane to go in a certain direction. Like they can't get past the Rockies, and it's forcing them north, and they try and readjust, and then it gets worse, so they have to just keep going wherever it's going to send them. And so Cyclops tries to get Storm to figure out what's going on, and she tells him, I sense a wrongness about us.
Yes.
And so she sort of reaches out with her powers and tries to manipulate the Storm to help them out. And she's saying, no, there's some outside force and intelligence that's controlling it.
My God.
Intelligent weather. And then the pilots are, sort of yell at the X-Men, like, knock it off. You're going to tear the plane apart. And then Cyclops is like, okay, everybody calm down. And they basically have to just fly the airplane where the Storm is going to let it go.
Such cool textures on on these clouds and things. God, the one where the plane is flying and you're seeing it from overhead, and it's almost like they're in the eye of a storm. It almost looks like there's like a screen tone over the top of it also, which is doing something. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it does look like that. Like,
I'd really love to see the original of that.
Kind of there, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't think this would have been any of like a kind of a duo shade, do you? Doing with the chemicals or anything?
No, I don't think so. It looks like there's a couple of things going on. It looks like he's maybe scratching out some of the stuff, like with the razor blade technique, because he does use it throughout this issue here and there. And then it looks like almost like he did put a screen tone over the top of some parts of it and scratched it off and let it do its own thing. But just that little extra, it's the little extra moments that I feel like he's taking to do these little things you would never even notice that elevates this artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now everybody's getting sort of up and at him, and in the cockpit, at least Wolverine's here. And Storm, Wolverine's here, Scott. And basically, so they're getting sent to Calgary, Canada. And they land the airplane at the airport, and the little guy in the tower here is saying, tell that special operations team that the pigeons are on final. Oh man, not good.
Not good at all.
And as they land, there's somebody on the runway.
Ding, ding, ding.
And here he is. Wolverine, you know who this is, and you know why I'm here. Surrender now, and your friends don't get hurt. Resist, and I won't be responsible for what happens. And Wolverine, he's popping claws. He's ready to just get into the action. And he doesn't want anybody to help him. Like Cyclops is like, okay, well, hey, we're a team, and he's like, no, stay out of this, bub. It's my fight. And Cyclops isn't going to take that. He's like, no, there's innocent people around. We got to get out of here. And they try and take the plane. They try and like lift back off with the airplane and fly away as the rest of the X-Men finally wake up.
This page is so good.
Yeah, like this is great right here. Nightcrawler, he looks out the window and just sees this shadowy form basically lifting up the airplane and just like holding it in place.
Yeah. And then the panel underneath where they start to show you just a peek at the features of the hair. You know, we know who this is. Or at least, even I know who this is. I mean, they say in the beginning that someone's name is Sasquatch. Clearly that's
so you're just waiting the whole time. You're like, oh, if his name's Sasquatch, I can't wait to see him.
But just the peak of it looks really awesome here. And then this bottom panel where you get this little tiny drawing of a figure thrusting itself forward, and then the plane. The action lines are coming off of the front of the plane, showing that the plane is being thrown backwards. Like, this dude is strong. Yeah. And then look at the panels. The panel that you were talking about, the two middle panels there. The use of the screen tone is definitely going on there.
Yeah.
And I think that so that panel on the left is super 70s. I mean, look at the outfit that that Banshee's wearing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's straight out of Scooby-Doo. And then, like, the techniques that he's using here, it looks like he's using that sort of like lattice etching on the floor. And then maybe throwing something over the top of it. There's just, and then there's like just like a textural layer on the wall. He's using a couple different things in this one little panel. And I don't know, like, I'm an inker. Clearly he just really, really cares about his job. Because if I'm an inker, I'm sure it's not the only book that he has to ink this month. He's got to kick out 20 of them. The pencils are super tight anyway. You're adding your own element to it. And then he goes on and does this like screen tone element that I think anybody else would have just kind of been like, yeah, I inked it. Let's move on. The colorist will fill in something there, Yeah,
and definitely because it's like a panel where, I mean, it's probably like the least of the panels on the page, like story-wise, and like,
oh yeah,
here we get a better close-up of people. We get all this tech, we get this amazing shot, we get the hairy arms lifting the plane. Like this one's like less interesting.
Yeah, and that's the one that
the effort in anyways.
Time on. It's super. It's wild. It's wild.
And here we get to see our airplane flying backwards through the air where it got chucked by Sasquatch, and it just slams into this hangar.
Yeah.
And just gets all destroyed.
Here's another page I'd love to see the original of. Maybe we can track it down, because I wonder if that smram sound effect is if Orzechowski did that, or if it's Byrne and Austin putting it in there, because of the way that it's tucked and everything is like things are kind of on top of it. It's very specific.
Yeah, it's so integrated into the artwork.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
To see the original and see how it looks on there. So here comes our guy. He's flying here and he's yelling at Sasquatch, who we only get to see like his head, the back of his head,
and his,
and a hand.
and his big old hand.
Yeah, and he's like, "I told you to stop the plane, not smash it."
Yeah.
And his response here is really interesting, Sasquatch, because he says, "Sorry about that, Vindicator. I guess I still don't know my own strength."
Vindicator. There we go.
So here we go. Now in his second appearance, he's known as Vindicator and not Weapon Alpha anymore.
He does become known as Guardian, right? Or is that a different character? Is that like
no, he does become Guardian.
Okay, because I have like a vision of like a blue and gold guy who's also Guardian. Is it the same character?
No, I mean he's still got the same outfit.
Huh, okay.
And stuff. It's like after like when Alpha Flight gets its own series.
Okay.
And I think it's like a story point, like he doesn't like the name Vindicator. It sounds too menacing.
Right.
Okay. He's
so
a protector.
They do address it.
Yeah.
So does Claremont write Alpha Flight or no?
No. I think Byrne writes Alpha Flight.
Byrne writes Alpha Flight. So Byrne is
the first artist on it.
Okay.
And correct me if you can, if I'm wrong, but isn't John Byrne Canadian? Or did I just make that up?
Well, that might be right.
For some reason, at least in my mind, that's correct. And that's why.
That feels correct.
You know, he kind of helped spearhead, like, let's put a Canadian team in it and stuff.
Yeah.
But so the plane is wrecked, and now our Vindicator, like, he's coming in to check to try and, like, he's like, oh man, I got to get these people out to safety and make sure, you know, everybody's okay.
Yeah.
And he's already starting to think to himself about, like, this is going poorly. Like, I didn't want this to happen. You know, we just wanted to, you know, give Wolverine an ultimatum and he was just going to come home, basically, is like the sentiment. Like, they thought they don't really want to scrap.
Yeah.
But he's like, oh, the plane's empty. And then the storm, like, there's more snow picking up. And he's just like, it doubled in intensity. This is crazy. And he's like, Shaman, like, you're supposed to phase out the blizzard. And we get our Shaman, of course, is also just sort of in blue where we don't get a good look at him yet.
Yes.
And he's saying, well, it's not my doing. One of the X-Men must have weather powers.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, Shaman was the one that was forcing the plane to come there.
Uh-huh.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of nice, the slow play of the Alpha Flight reveal. I really like it.
Yeah, they really are pushing the introduction of them, and I agree. It makes it you know, if you do like just a flip through of this page or flip through real fast of this comic, it's gonna look like it's just a bunch of talking heads, and to some degree there is just a lot of talking going on in it. I mean, obviously there's action too, but you know, not the kind of action that you would normally see in a superhero comic. But it's the pacing and the way that they're introducing, and which is why when we opened, I said these next two comics are going to be a really great reveal, you know, because they really don't show anybody. And before we get off this page, I just want to point out the top middle panel where he's flying there and how great that sky is to sort of show this, you know, Canadian night sky with that time of day when, you know, you're still getting the reflection of the sun on clouds, but you can peek at the stars through it, you know, through them, and they color it nice and blue there. It's really like beautiful page. It just shows the level of, sorry, that's my dog drinking. It just shows the level of care that everybody is and like just the care that everybody is bringing to this book. Yeah. You know, no one's phoning it in at all.
Yeah, and it all comes together so nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I love like this shaman in the blue, and then like with it being purple behind him, like this purple in the storm, like is really great. And then now here we see our X-Men basically like using the snowstorm for cover and like on their way to get to safety.
Storm does that a lot. She uses the weather to hide them. This is about the 5th time probably that we've seen that.
Yeah. And so basically they get to the airport terminal, and then they decide like we got to split. If we split up, then it'll make it hard for them to find us all, and then we can then regroup and do what we got to do. And Wolverine here kind of fills them in, saying like, hey, yeah, well, these guys, they're not villains. They're what I used to be, Canadian government agents. Jimmy Hudson, Major Maple Leaf, is head of a project to develop a team of Canadian superheroes. He started by looking for mutants, same as Professor X. He found me.
Yep. Yeah, he goes on to say, I was his guinea pig, his first big success and only failure. And I'm assuming that means because the project worked, but he, escaped and got the hell out of there as fast as he could.
We'll say yes.
Okay.
Because I mean the way because you're thinking of that like the Weapon X project.
Well,
a bit.
I mean, we know that he got we know that he got out of there, and because why would he be a success if they didn't have some sort of hand in? I'm thinking of just like trying to tame him because right,
like he was
not necessarily doing all the testing and stuff.
You're right. Yeah, because he was going to be like the perfect, like the good soldier, the yes man. He was going to follow orders and everything. And it turned out he wasn't going to do that. And then when Professor X came along, he said like, I'm out of here.
Right. Mm-hmm. Who are these people in the foreground, do you think? Is that Byrne and
yeah, see, I really do wonder if it is somebody. So the only thing is, I mean, it could just be like a coloring mistake, but like, Byrne's blonde, isn't he? Right? Wasn't Byrne, Cockrum, and Claremont all like blonde guys with beards?
Is he blonde or is he like a strawberry blonde?
But it could be like a self-portrait of.
It really feels like he's trying to do a portrait of somebody there. It doesn't feel like it's a little less his style. It's like he's really looking at a photo or something,
Yeah, right. Especially the woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wondered that too. Like it just stands out, and I was like, ooh.
Well, it's has to be. Yeah, they've done it plenty of times in the past already.
Yeah, they've been really peppering in a lot of little cameos, sort of creator cameos.
Yeah.
And as we move along here, our X-Men, so they're going to split and then rendezvous in the center of the city.
Right.
And so, boom, here comes Nightcrawler. 3 jumps, boom, boom, teleported around. Thinking like, hey, he's safe. But all of a sudden, here come these 2 figures above them. And we get their shadows in the snow here. And it's interesting. He's like, there's no shadows nearby. I must teleport, because he could still hide in shadows at this point.
Yeah.
And then like they basically like blast him with light so he can't see anything, and then just knock him out.
I love the use of the light blue there.
Yeah, like we never get to see Nightcrawler without like the dark shadows all under his eyes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like right there, all of a sudden it's like, oh, he looks so much more normal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he's blue, but it's almost like he's like that. He's really sort of like that, that shade of black that is like the blackest black, where they send you into the rooms with it and people freak out because it's so dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. It's almost like he's not even blue. He's like this dark, dark black, and that's why he's always in the shade.
Yeah. That would have been interesting if like it would have been that case, but then they just, they always use blue as like your stand-in color for black.
Right. Yeah. Because
You
then
know?
obviously that's how you can show any kind of features and details. But then they always go and say something in the dialogue and things about blue furry, this and that, So
Yeah.
that's kind of blown.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the scene that I was talking about where they talk about you hit him very hard, brother. I hope he isn't hurt.
Yeah. And he's like, he's unconscious, sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Translated from French. So they're from,
yeah, they're French Canadians.
Yeah, French Canadians.
Yeah.
My people.
And they're like, he looks like a mutant like us. I don't like hunting my own kind. Which is kind of not cool little sentiment there,
Yeah. And I see that they have like almost matching outfits too, which is funny because I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it later.
All right. So now we get this interesting scene of some of our other characters, and like Banshee and Storm and Colleen Wing are like in a mall. And they're basically like getting Storm like something else to wear because she's like super tall and has this white hair, and so she can't really hide as well in a crowd as like all the other sort of basic white X-Men.
Right.
Uh-huh.
I have this Calgary mall too that they're setting it at. He boom, boom, boom uses it 3 times, so you know exactly where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Calgary Tower, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And Banshee here, he's like smoking his pipe, which he tells us he shouldn't be doing.
Imagine a time when people would smoke in like a clothing store.
Yeah, in a boutique. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd get home and buy a thing and your clothes would just all like pre-reek.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And as we remember last time, to defeat Moses Magnum, Banshee basically screamed so hard that he almost like couldn't even talk again.
Yeah.
And so he's still wondering right now if he'll ever actually regain his power.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yep. Smoking's gonna help.
Yeah. So it's kind of up in the air. And then, here comes Storm. Like, okay, here's her outfit. And then Banshee, like, this is great. He's like, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah.
And basically, he's not sure about that outfit because he's used to seeing Storm wearing almost nothing.
Yeah.
And so he thinks it's like weird all of a sudden to see her with all these like winter clothes on. And she agrees. She's like, I feel smothered in all these clothes.
Yeah.
And the Canadian working the shop is like, I don't understand.
Yeah. They're like, oh, these are to keep you warm. And she's like, I'm never cold.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. And here's Vindicator swooping in, trying to find him. And he basically has kind of tracked some of them to the mall. And he just like burns down through the roof.
Yeah, like liquefies the roof.
Yeah, freaking people out.
So he's not a mutant. He is just a guy that works for the government in a sweet suit, but all of his teammates are of the mutant variety. Am I correct in guessing that?
Yeah, he's like the one non-mutant,
right?
And then he gets to be in charge too.
Right.
That ain't right, I say. Gosh. And here he finds, he's like, Banshee. And
it's crazy how he comes in so hot and then he's like not even looking for a fight.
Yeah, like, yeah, Vindicator, he's interesting. He's like, he's got a little bit of that Wolverine, like, I'm going to go off half cocked, but then instantly he like regrets it. And he like comes back to his senses like, oh, wait, maybe that was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
That was a bad idea.
Yeah, like that's not what I'm all about.
Yeah. And of course, Banshee recognizes him because when he attacked the X-Men before, he almost murdered Moira when he shot Colossus with his power and it ricocheted and hit her in the head. And so Banshee is still pissed about that. And here he goes. He's ready to just haul off and sonic scream him to death. And he can't do it.
Yeah. He retches, basically.
Yeah. Falls down, and instantly Vindicator, who's not a bad guy, he's like, hey, don't try and talk. I'll get a doctor. I hope he's all right. And we get this little panel arrow, so we know to go down.
Yeah, there's the panel arrow.
Worked into the border. And so now his focus is like, oh, I got to get a doctor. I hope to make sure he's okay. And then, of course, coming right in, here comes Storm, says, pray that he is, assassin, or you will pay the price.
Dang.
And she is powering up. Great image here. Yeah. With her in her different outfit, because she had to get different clothes on. And then interesting, like the blue to show sort of this sort of weather energy building up. And the result of that is shaboom. She just throws him through the wall and like out of there.
Great lettering.
Yeah. And I love this image of Storm here where her arm is lifted and you just get that motion. It's like right after she just like used the wind to just like chuck him.
Yeah.
And she's still like finishing the movement. It's really effective. And then and everybody's like can't believe like she's got that much power that she can just suddenly just turn on and just just unleash.
This poor woman who owns the shop is just like mortified.
Yeah. Oh, my poor store.
Gosh.
Yeah.
It's a good thing Charles has an endless bucket of money, apparently, you know?
Yeah, right. And they got another destroyed airplane that maybe they got to pitch in.
Yeah.
If the Canadians don't fit the bill. And so Vindicator, he takes off running. Like he's not going back.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, on my macho pride, I can't handle that woman alone. And so he flies off and he's like, some superhero and team leader I turn out to be. Perhaps Heather was right. So that's a reference to his wife, Heather Hudson.
Yeah.
Who does not appear in this issue.
No. And that was the last time we saw him. We had that moment where he sort of like comes home and is like, honey, I'm home. It's just like any, like the end, like Leave It to Beaver. Like he's just, job's over. I clocked out and now I'm back home and, it's dinner ready.
Yeah. I did my superheroing for the day is done. And we get this nice little tidbit here from our Vindicator where he's saying he never wanted the job in the first place. From the beginning, I meant it for Wolverine.
Oh.
So Wolverine wasn't just being recruited and groomed to be a member of Alpha Flight. He was supposed to be the leader of Alpha Flight. And then that, of course, didn't work out. So, maybe another extra layer of why the Canadian government is so pissed at him, because he was supposed to be the head of our fancy superhero team and you left us in the lurch.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so now here's our other guys trying to get somewhere safe. Wolverine kind of walking through, kind of like a slum.
Yeah, you got these like unhoused people, and
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, just like a little side take where he's like, all them big shiny skyscrapers downtown can't hide the poverty that's here.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's just like a little social commentary in there. And then he's wondering about like a bar basically that he used to go and hang out at, if it's still around. But here we get another in shadows shot of our man Sasquatch.
Yeah, you see a little bit more of them here.
And right here, like, Wolverine is again thinking about a woman,
Yep.
But now instead of Jean Grey, now he's just head over heels for Mariko.
Yeah, he gets pretty obsessed.
Yeah.
This is a great little 3-panel thing as we're walking up and we see, Sasquatch in the foreground as Wolverine starts walking up.
Mm-hmm.
And then this panel where he flicks his cigarette and Sasquatch's arm is coming up behind him. The face looks almost like a Art Adams Wolverine face. Really feels like that. But really, really great, like, that flick of a cigarette, he nailed that. And then you get this like cartoon whoop of the hat floating there, like whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah. Great little sequence. And here it ends with, look at Wolverine getting slammed, and look at the size of this arm.
Yes, it's huge. And then the wham is busting out of the left side, and then the next one you got him
ham.
Yeah, passed off, and So
and our Sasquatch here calls him Captain Logan.
Yes, he does.
So he was, however, he had a military rank in this Canadian forces or whatever. He was a captain.
Yep.
And that they know his real name.
Yes.
And that's all it takes is 2 slams, and he's out unconscious and gets carried away.
Yep.
And Cyclops here at the end saying, Wolverine and Nightcrawler are still missing. We have to figure that they've been captured. The X-Men didn't start this fight, people, but we're sure as hell gonna finish it.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
If necessary, over Alpha Flight's bodies. And look at the word balloon. He's like, but we're sure as Blaze is gonna finish it. Never see
Cyclops
that.
Is serious.
Never see that with Scott.
And that is how issue 120 ends. Next time, shootout at the Stampede.
God, looking at Scott's outfit there with the turtleneck and everything, it just like you can just like smell the 70s. You can just smell that stale cigarette smoke permeated out everything.
Yeah,
it's your aunt's
makes him
living
look
room.
older too, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, he's not 30.
Yeah, right. So in this issue, before we take a look at what how the classic addresses it, printed here is like circulation numbers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It must have been like they had to for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It's required by some like US law. And so sort of like it's like for the 12 months before the September of 78 issue.
Okay.
Which is a little bit before this one.
Sure.
But it's like really interesting stuff where they give you basically the average print run for the preceding 12 months for each issue is around 282,600 copies.
Wow.
Is your average print run for each issue.
Wow. That's pretty big.
But get this. It also gives us, because this is pre-direct market, really.
Returns.
Yeah. So it gives you the number of returns from news agents. So all your little stands and stuff.
They'd rip off the cover if the issue didn't sell, and they could return it. Yep.
The average number of copies returned is 166,000.
Holy shit. That's so really they sold about 100 and some thousand, right?
Yeah, so it says the total distribution, the average number is like 115,500 copies.
I mean, that's still good, but God, what a waste.
Yeah, but can you so it's like you're returning more copies than you put into the hands of like people actually bought.
Yeah. And people weren't recycling back then.
No. And yeah, that's interesting because like when you start digging into and reading little things here or there about pre-direct market, like I've read all these things about where like, oh, these little distributors in like Chicago, they would kind of like end up throwing a ton of them away and not even giving them out to places with spinner racks and stuff, you know, because they were more concerned about the magazines they were selling and other stuff. And they would just like, at the end of the week, we just like toss the stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Just crazy.
Crazy.
So yeah, that's our first part of our big Alpha Flight reveal, and they don't really reveal too much.
Not really.
No.
Well, let's take a look at Classic then, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's see here. We've got Carrie Gamble is doing the cover on these. Interesting texture on the whole thing. I think that's a screen tone. But it's a cool cover.
Yeah, nice sort of beat up Wolverine angle.
Yep. There's a Storm.
Yeah, there we go. Storm in the department store.
Yep.
Going crazy. That's really cool.
And then here's where we get the shot of Alpha Flight in their costumes.
Oh man, so they drop in tiny costume image on the
yeah. And he's just sort of reminiscing about it and talking to like a secretary and stuff like that.
Is that a secretary or is that Heather?
Maybe that is Heather. He doesn't really say, I don't think. And then we get this cut to Jean and Moira just sort of like out on the moors, or out on the that's not the moors, out on the cliffside, and just like talking about their lost loves. And again, Jean just sort of talking about how she doesn't want this power. And that's basically it for the interior stuff. But then let's take a look. Here's our backup story. This is super interesting. John Bolton again on art. But look at this strange cartooning that he's doing for this flashback. It's very much like he's trying to channel, like, I don't know, like Chester Gould via something else. Doesn't this look almost like from Little Mermaid?
Yeah.
So what it is basically it flashes back to this bar that Wolverine used to hang out at. And then look at here's where Bolton gets into now, and he goes back into his style. And so he's sitting there with Banshee and Nightcrawler, who's back to hiding his looks. And he's telling them the story about, this bar that he was at, where he and the woman who owned it sort of had this gig going on where Wolverine would arm wrestle and he'd beat everybody, and they would just kind of make money. And he sort of starts talking about, this character that he was arm wrestling and his friend, and Banshee's like, oh my gosh, when I was an Interpol agent, I was there that night. because I was trying to bust somebody that they kind of worked for.
Oh man!
And so their paths crossed. Scott comes in right at the right time for Sean to start telling his story. Really great inking and stipple kind of drawing here. And then he cuts to this cool, like, I don't know, like he's just got a lot of flow here in this brush.
Yeah, it's interesting noir.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
See, that's the style somebody needs to do for our young Interpol Banshee spin-off series.
Exactly. Woo! So he's got this like French guy that he's following, and he's trying to get them to him and this other guy to kind of make this deal in front of him. And he's got the Turk and this other guy that Wolverine ends up arm wrestling in as his like muscle. And they start paying attention to, everybody starts paying attention to this corner where all this commotion's going on because Wolverine's over here besting everybody at arm wrestling. You know, the boss sends Lefty is the name of this guy, so he sends him over to get a drink, and to get that, you know, to go get me a drink basically. And so Wolverine's like crushing all these people. Look at this weird cartooning. Isn't this just crazy?
And that's John Bolton doing that as well.
Yeah, it is.
Wow,
it's really weird. And you almost got this like 90s style getting in here with this line work. It's just wild. You know, we're creeping up on it. But then, yeah, like look at right in the middle. And even like in the arrow's not used a lot. We just saw it in this issue, but the arrow's not used a lot in you know, standard comics. But it was definitely used in the early days, and in cartoon books, like Talking Animal books, they used it a lot. So here you got, like, because the panels in the middle, they use the arrow here. Now I don't know. I would never use that unless I was trying to go for something. And I think they're just trying to go for that look because, you know, they're maybe thinking that people still remember the old funny books at this point. But this tangent with his knuckles and this stripe on his shirt is bugging me.
Yeah, the stripes, like it's just like perfect, like vertical. You know, it doesn't like bend with like the shirt or anything.
Well, you know, that technique is used a lot and is especially used in like old cartoons and stuff. But, you know, you look at, you know, here, you look at Sean's pants, you know, it's the same thing.
I guess so. Yeah.
It's just more blatant here because it's so big. And so, he finally gets them to do the deal, and then the Mounties come in and, you know, take them off. It just happened to come in and take them off. And this guy, Lefty, thinks that it's rigged, so he tries to fight, you know, Wolverine. Big cartoon fight here. Like he said, I learned through my instincts that said to plow through the fight, but Rose's way gave everyone a good old show and upped the odds to boot. So he basically would have moments where Lefty seemed like he was having an upper hand, even though he never really did, you know. And there's a great line here where this is a great page. I just love the drawing here of Wolverine especially. But and Scott says, I'm glad to see that a couple of guys who were so temperamental, such temperamental loners, could grow into people I'm proud to call teammates. And Wolverine says, then I'd say there's hope for you too, Junior. He calls him out on it. That's really great. And they all have a laugh.
Another good camaraderie evening at Harry's Hideaway.
Yeah, I kind of feel like these are kind of you know, they're fun and they're important. It shows the building of them. and it's too bad you couldn't have snuck these back, back in the day. But
yeah.
And then yeah, look at that. Isn't that wild?
Wow, that's amazing. Like, and to show off like that he can just draw a story in those different styles.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
John Bolton, number 26, 1988. Cool. And that, my friends, is X-Men number 120.
20.
Wow. We're cruising right along.
Yes, sir. And it's going to get even crazier with Canadian action next week.
I'm going to have to order some moose antlers for the next episode. Put them up on the wall behind me or something.
That's right.
Anywho, get your classic X-Men 27 or your X-Men number 121 or your whatever kind of omnibus or digital platform that you can find, any way you can do it. And read X-Men 121, where we're going to be introduced to the look and the splendor of Alpha Flight next week.
That's right.
So until then, John,
right.
What would you like to say?
Be excellent, everybody.
All right, everybody. Take care. Check out DinoBeast.com for all things John Coates like Dino Beast, Ninja 4, M.L.F, Berserker, and more. ChrisAndersonComics.com is where it's at for books like Chaotic Neutral, Spectral, A Showcase of Fear, Lost Angels, and more, plus apparel and original art. Also a link to Patreon where you can read Three-Headed Pig Man now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. We'll see you next time on the Chris Claremont X-Men Comic Club.